welcome to EMS at Sea Level. My guest today is Lybaek from GPV. Bo, thank you so much for taking part. Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we get into the questions, give me a short introduction to yourself and to GPV.
Yes, hi there. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate here today. GPV is a Danish-based EMS player in a European context. Our customers are primarily European headquartered, 80% of them, and the 20% are headquartered in the US. But of course, we deliver products all over the world, where our customers are operating with their own factories or with sub-suppliers and so on.
Okay.
We are currently number 7, I think it is, in Europe.
Okay, and you have 13 factories worldwide, is it?
Yes. And to myself, I've been a CEO of GPV since 2008. And I'm an industrialist and have been that all my life.
Okay.
And I think I'll be it also for the remaining part of my working life.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's just start with the COVID experience. And when I first started doing these interviews, I think it was March. So I was saying to people, what's happened in the last couple of months. Now it feels like it's what's happened in 2020, and it's kind of occupied the whole of the year. So talk me a little bit through your experience. And I think what's interesting there is you also managed to execute excellent results in that period. So, maybe share some stories and some secrets of that as we go.
Yes, the year 2020 was actually already before it started a year where we thought that things was going to be different to the years prior to that. But we certainly did not see that Corona or COVID-19 situation was going to arise. And that has, of course, meant that the year's been very, very different to what we expected. In January, we launched an updated strategy, Winning Our Future. And I was traveling around presenting this to all our colleagues. But in March, it was another topic on the agenda. And since then, we have had a task force dealing with the COVID-19 situation. And we have had 2 priorities right from day one. The first priority, that was to take best care of our employees and their families. And the second priority, that was to take best care of our business and deliveries to our customers. And the last bit is not just about our business, but it is also been I think an extremely important tool for many of our colleagues in you could say in development countries, that we should do all what we could to make sure that they could still go safely to work, earn some money, and be part of the local society.
Yeah, and that's been a big challenge, hasn't it? So as you look at your different facilities around the world, have you had factory closures? Which factories were most disrupted at which periods?
I think for all of us who have manufacturing in China, that was a direct lockdown, and of course we also experienced that, and it took quite a while until we were back in operation. I think we were not the first and we were not the last to restart, so maybe somewhere in the middle, I guess. And then we've had a situation in Sri Lanka where it was actually not a lockdown, but it ended out being a de facto lockdown because there was some complications in getting enough permits for our employees to pass through some of the police checkpoints. So there we had, I think it ended up in 3 weeks where there was a little bit up and down how many people, how many of our colleagues could go to work. And I think in Europe we have had our site in the southern part of Switzerland, where you have Italy very close by. Most of our employees are Italians, so they have been in a situation in the Italian part with tough measures on because of COVID-19, and then being in a Swiss side where there was not the same level of urgency and necessity. So that created some challenges in crossing the border. But at some point in time, the Swiss and the Italian authorities took a decision that we will not discuss border closing in the next 6 months. So that created some quietness.
Gave you a little bit of a window. So as that's gone across, you know, the original disruption we saw was partly our factories in China, but also our supply chain in China, which will have affected you elsewhere in the world. Next disruption was disruption in terms of demand, because we were seeing massive changes in demand in different marketplaces. And then the third part of this perfect storm of disruption was the working environments. It's been constant, hasn't it? How have you seen the demand change, and which market sectors have you seen the most impact in?
Is it okay that I just say a little bit about what we did in our factories?
Yes.
Because we very fast realized that we had to implement, you could say, a European standard set of rules with distance and hygiene measures and so on in all our sites.
Right.
Of course, we also had to follow the local requirements if there was a requirement for using masks or some other local requirements. And we had one group of persons in charge of implementing this in our sites, and it has been fantastic to see how fast and how responsive all employees have been. And if you have some thousand people working at a site, they have to go to the canteen for lunch, for instance. Then it is a little bit of a logistic thing that to make this happen in under secure circumstances.
Yeah.
And we're still running this also today.
Yeah, and I think it's always fascinating, because it's one of these instances where you put a team under pressure, and you either get the best out of them or the worst out of them. So it's really interesting to see the systems that you've got in place, the management you've got in place, the team that you've got in place, and how they can respond in crisis. I think it's a real measure for a company. I know when customers are looking at their EMS providers, how they respond in this kind of crisis becomes a key part to where they consider those key relationships to be in the future. So getting back to those relationships with customers, which are the markets that have had the biggest seismic shifts for you?
Where we have seen that, or where we are hurt the most on demand side, because this health crisis have now turned into a demand crisis for the industry of some kind, at least, in my view, and that has been in the construction equipment side. If you take the yellow things like Caterpillar, Volvo, and so on, Volvo construction equipment, and then we have also seen a small decrease in what we call instruments and industry. We have that together, and that is our most important segment. And like a lot of other players, we've also seen an increase in what we then call medtech, where we're producing some controls for ventilators. So this mixture of you could say candy in our bag makes it possible for us to provide I hope somehow decent result also for 2020. At least that is what we have just announced after the second quarter.
Yeah, yeah, and there's some balance there from the different sectors. When you look at the medtech sector, are there sectors where you've been specifically involved in the fight against COVID, in the PPE side or in the capital equipment side, ventilator side?
Yeah, it has only been in the ventilator side.
Uh-huh.
There are several things going up. You could say with some percentages, maybe because of the general focus on health and so on. But it is the ventilator business where we've seen a dramatic boom.
Yeah, yeah,
And all this is only possible because of our fantastic colleagues being able and willing to take the extra measures that it takes to be able to conduct such special urgent orders. But also on the other side, we have also sites where we're doing short-term work to accept that you have to go on a short-term work, meaning less pay for the individual. But we do this because that is what it takes to come well through this crisis. And I think in general, we have a very good backup from our colleagues.
yeah, and it's very impressive to see how everybody comes together with that common goal. One of the things that does seem to have seen you through is that idea that you've created a very efficient business, and you're becoming more and more efficient, and you've managed to deliver a really impressive bottom line despite having perhaps a little bit of growth or a little bit of wind taken out of your sales by the crisis in terms of the top line number. What do you put that down to? Is that an ongoing strategy of digital transformation, of automation, of efficiency? How have you managed to maintain that bottom line so well?
It is, I think, there's a short-term action for us that was to enter into dialogue with all our local management teams and decide what do we need to do, what is the short-term necessity and what is the longer-term perspectives, because there's always this balance. So we have been doing a lot to reduce our cost and so on. But at the same time, we have also been able to set up a pool of additional investments, which was actually a kind of a competition between sites who could come up with the best automation proposals. And the idea is to do this also very quick implementation, because then we are more efficient and more competitive when we are out of this crisis again.
Yeah, and it's a
so
key.
this about automation has been key for us for a longer period of time, and I'm sure it will also continue to be.
Yeah, and I think that is becoming key. I'm interested, when you look at that automation, is it very specific projects like, what I would call digital building blocks with specific ROI that kind of won the day in terms of investment? What kind of strategies were the winners between those sites?
I don't know if I'm the right one to say a claim that I can see who are going to be the winners. But we are going to do what we think is the best for GPV. So we have some strategic building blocks, and we have also this year been able to announce a bigger digital building block that we are going to implement a group-wide MES system.
Okay.
But the automation pool that I was talking about before, that was more on a local level. So it was to give a boost to local creativity. And I can tell you that we got a lot of very interesting project proposals. We got 31 project proposals in total. And some of them were very small money, but very, very creative.
Yeah.
So that was to foster some enthusiasm and also if there are some places, maybe in some development countries, where you're a little bit more afraid of what does
Yeah.
automation means? Does that mean
Yeah.
loss of jobs? Where in seen from being in Europe, the way to secure jobs, that is to continuously automate,
Yeah.
to be sure that you are efficient, that you are cost efficient, and so on, because otherwise we will lose the business. So that's been interesting.
Yeah, and it's getting that right balance right. So, that's, I mean, I think you've really explained the short term really well. In terms of the medium and long term, challenging remainder of the year for the industry. I know there are a lot of talk. There's been talk in Europe. I was talking to a consultant recently who thought maybe 20% of the companies would disappear in the next 10 years, and he thinks because of COVID that will maybe shrink to 3 years or something like that. Do you see some long-term challenges for the industry and some, as a result, consolidation or actually people going out of business?
I will also not judge if people are going out of business. That we'll have to see. But it's the two other points that you mentioned is clearly on our radar, and that's also why we have updated our strategy, winning our future, and that includes also further acquisitions if we are able to find the right targets, because we strongly believe that size matters in our industry, and there will be a continuation of the consolidation. And in the European context, I think that many people are talking about that you have to make sure that you are having enough total volume to be able to sustain in this EMS business.
Yeah, and when you look at some of those strategies with respect to automation, they're much easier to do when your business is growing anyway, because what you want to be doing is putting more product through with the same people rather than the same product through with less people, because it allows you to move forward. When you look at that,
and maybe also just one word. We are in this high mix, low medium business, so we are very, very close to our customers, and we are only doing technical electronics business to business. So how do you balance this about becoming bigger and still having this closeness to your customers? That is our main focus, to make sure that we are able to handle this.
Yeah, and you maintain those very, very close bonds. When you look at the digital transformation and the potential of COVID-19 to accelerate that, I see two factors. One is a desire to be more automated, more transformed, but that contrasts with maybe a bit of a slowdown in terms of the ability to invest capital. How do you see that? And do you look to your suppliers to be perhaps more creative and offer you, I don't know, automation as a service or software as a service solutions to help shift things from CapEx to OpEx?
To be honest, we are right now thinking that we are in the fortunate situation that our balance sheet is so strong that we are able to conduct the capex investments that we need to conduct. But of course, we are also looking for cost-worthy, good solutions. But we are not a type of a company preferring leasing instead of traditional capex.
Yeah, because you do have that solid balance sheet, and that makes all the difference in this market.
But when you're in a crisis, like in the financial crisis, when I joined GPV, you get to learn that cash is king, and that is of course also the case nowadays.
Yeah, and it's become even more important. Yes. So looking at your team, and I don't know how many people you have across the world, but I know it's several thousand. How have they coped in lockdown? How have you managed to maintain communication and keep them motivated? What's helped?
Yeah, we have had this task force, and we have been talking together with all our site managers and our sales management 3 times a week until we started June, I think it was. Then we reduced it a little bit because right now we actually only see our site in Mexico being not really over the hill yet in respect of COVID-19. So it has been a close dialogue. We have had close dialogues with the local management teams to both to listen to what are their concerns and what are happening in the different countries where we operate, but also to give them you could say confidence that maybe we have some demands, some requirements that we have to live up to, but there's also going to be a good future for GPV. And the same goes with our customers. When it peaked, we were issuing news information to our customers 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So I also think that at least that is some of the feedbacks that our sales management is becoming, that we have managed that in a good and a transparent way.
Yeah, and I think, Bo, you're absolutely right there. That open and honest communication that you've had on a regular basis with your customer, just having information is going to make them feel better. And also, I think as you look to grow, that's something that you have to do in crisis and in normal terms. You know, that's how you maintain those relationships that feel more dynamic and more entrepreneurial, which is what I think your customers want right now. You're pretty much out of lockdown where you are in Denmark, but when you were in lockdown, how were you staying sane? I mean, you're missing out on travel, you're missing out on all your favorite restaurants. What was keeping you occupied apart from work?
I'm doing road biking. I've never biked as much as I have done this year. And for many years, I've not been able to play as much golf as this year.
Okay.
And it just, and I think I've actually also worked more, but I have been traveling or using time on transportation much less. Because normally I'm traveling, you could nearly say all the time. So the time saved there have been used on something else.
So you're fitter, you're cycling more
Yes.
miles or more kilometers, and your golf handicap's improved?
No, it has gone up, but I think that was needed.
Okay.
So I think I am much fitter and fit for the next step that we're going to go for, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think it's the times are also exciting when they are challenging, because it gives you also opportunities going forward that you might not have seen yesterday or 2-3 days ago.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think the
we
market's
are full of
changing.
ego.
Yeah, I think the market's changing. There are different challenges, and the market that we saw, or the industry we saw in 2019, and the industry we will see in 2021 are completely different. Before we go, what advice would you give to your peers? What advice would you give to other people running EMS companies, particularly in Europe right now?
Being dedicated in what you're doing. Decide what you want to do and go for it. That is what we have been doing for the past 11-12 years I've been on board here in GPV, and I think that is the most important thing, and every company have to do what they think are best for their company. But when you have decided, then you also have to go for it.
Yeah, so set your sights, and that comes to that slogan that you have of, what is it, winning our future?
Yeah, the our new strategy is winning our future, and it speaks both to our customers and it speaks to our colleagues that we have to win our future by ourselves, and if we can help our customers to win their future even better, then I think we have accomplished a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic stuff. Well, Bo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your candor. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And thank you to everybody who's been tuning in and watching EMS at Sea Level. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.